All right, my name is Robert Strickland, and we'll be going over my website, the Home Buyer's Advocate. It is basically a website that's was created to help young renters determine if they should buy a home or continue renting. All of the theory created was by Ben Felix. He is a researcher at PWL Capital. He has a YouTube channel, and he goes over financial concepts related to retirement and investing. So you guys just saw the about page, but this right here is the home page. When I was going over the design elements of it, I chose the white, black, yellow um, color scheme, and I just copied the color scheme of Binance and BlackRock. Yeah, and it goes into more detail about why it matters. I also included links to third-party financial websites, and also meet the author, where it shows them my personal resume, which is also using the same color scheme. All right, and this is the next page, which has a this is a video by Ben Felix, and here you have the transcript. And at this portion right here are the key concepts that are explained. Basically, it gives you the theory that's less technical than the one that Ben gave us in the video, and it gives you basically like the formula that's used in the calculator that you'll see later on, and it also gives you an example of using the 5% rule to determine if you should buy a home. And I also created a UML diagram to also explain it. What you're doing is you're basically comparing the unrecoverable costs of a mortgage to that of renting costs. All unrecoverable costs associated with renting are easy. It's how much you pay in rent. Unrecoverable costs, they're composed of a few other concepts. Specifically, there is property taxes, which typically comes out to be 1% of the value of the home. Maintenance costs, which also come up to be about 1% of the value of the home. And the cost of capital, which is a little bit more complicated, but we'll get into that. It is basically comprised of the cost of debt. So basically, the mortgage interest that you will have to pay, because typically people, they get a loan from the bank, and on that bank loan there's interest, and typically that is 3% of the value of the home, so what you can expect. And the cost of equity is basically the opportunity cost associated with taking your down payment and putting it into a mortgage instead of putting it in the stock market, where it actually has a higher chance of accruing value. All right, and we shall return back here. Next is the misconceptions page. It's just set to give you more information and to get rid of some misconceptions associated with buying a home, such as you're actually the most logical thing to do is to live in a cheaper apartment or home and take the difference that you would have been paying towards a mortgage and just invest that into total market index funds. But I digress. Next up are the final considerations. Again, it's just supplementary information and also things that you really need to consider. Uh, more misconceptions and what the risk averse people should do. Now, I think this part is very important, as most people, they don't actually like investing into stocks and such. So it's actually better for them to just buy a home that they can afford because it kind of forces you to invest. Because if you don't, you're going to end up losing your house. So it's better than nothing. Next up and last is the calculator. All right, so the comparison, or the 5% comparison tool. Basically, you put in the cost of renting. So, say you pay $2,000. Yeah, you live in a really nice major city, and say the home that you're considering purchasing is, mm, we'll go with 400K. And so what it does is it basically applies the 5% rule to the costs, which is basically the is 400,000 times 5%, which will give you the actual costs associated with purchasing the home, and then you divide it by 12 to get the monthly amount. And what we would get is it tells you it is actually logical to buy the home because in that situation you're actually saving money by buying a home of that price rather than renting for $2,000 per month. And that right there concludes the website. A quick summary of a few difficulties I found with creating the website. Uh, Generally, they're all related to the coding of this, which I think just means I need to code more websites. Um, so I would definitely say just general naming conventions related to using CSS and HTML, basically. Because at the very end of this, these names got started getting very long. Um, yeah. Second one is the CSS associated with the calculator screen. As you can see, due to the naming conventions, the CSS did negatively affect this one screen with this one location over here. And lastly, I spent about 40 minutes on an if statement, and the reason that it kept failing was because the I was not capitalized. Yeah. And lastly, what I found is that I definitely prefer using JavaScript as it's closer to such as Java and Python, but HTML and CSS are a little different, but I figured it out and I can see how they're very useful. So I guess I learned something about myself. And this concludes my presentation on the Homebuyers Advocate website.